icebergs. So A.Q. Khan, many of you may not remember this man, but I would say remember the name, A.Q. Khan. If you had written this as a movie script, it would have been rejected by Hollywood. And they make a lot of silly movies, okay? And why? Because A.Q. Khan was the father of Pakistan's nuclear bomb program. He's the most famous person in Pakistan. So he built Pakistan's nuclear bomb. He also decided to go into business for himself on the side as a nuclear weapons proliferator, and grew up to be what Mohammed al-Baradei calls the Walmart of private sector proliferation. So who were his customers? Here, Libya. Now this story we know a lot about because back in 2004, after he was found out, Mr. Gaddafi decided to come clean. So Libya's nuclear weapons program was totally uncovered by Gaddafi, deliberately, and given over to the Americans and the Brits in a deal. And this material you can find now at Oak Ridge, Tennessee, in the United States. What did Gaddafi buy from A.Q. Khan? Everything required for his own nuclear bomb. So here on your left is UF6. This is uranium hexafluoride, which is the starter material for making nuclear bombs. He actually sourced this out of North Korea. In the middle are centrifuges. These centrifuges are called P1s. These look exactly like the centrifuges you'll see in Iran at Natanz as well. Why? They were sold to him by Pakistan by Mr. A.Q. Khan. And here is a nuclear warhead design, quite a good warhead design. This is not an elementary bomb. This is a warhead design for something that would fit on a missile. This is a Chinese warhead design, which A.Q. Khan had got from the Chinese, which he also included. In addition, he provided consulting services. So, were it not the case for the deal that occurred in 2004, Libya would today have nuclear weapons. Say it again. Imagine a Libya today in which there were some number of nuclear weapons and some number of nuclear weapons equivalents. I mean, it's really quite hard to imagine. So when people say, what's the good news? I say the very good news is there are no nuclear weapons in Libya. There are no nuclear weapons usable material in Libya. Why? As a result of very good luck, I would say, plus good policy, a sustained effort by especially the British and the Americans, but ultimately success. So who else in this network? Mr. Kim Jong-il. Beginning of the century, North Korea had no nuclear bombs. When George Bush left office, North Korea had 8 bombs worth of nuclear weapons, and it conducted 1 nuclear weapons test. So North Korea is the only self-declared, non-recognized nuclear weapon state on Earth. North Korea produces its bombs here at Yongbyon. This is a reactor, a research reactor they first got from the Soviet Union. It produces spent fuel that has plutonium. They extract the plutonium. They use that for their bombs. Here's their nuclear weapons test. You can see in 06 and 09, they've now done 2 tests. Here are their missile tests that are continuing. But what else do we find here? And it, again, connects to the A.Q. Khan story in the first instance. So what does North Korea sell to whomever? And the answer is whatever it has to whomever will pay. So missiles, generally in the business, North Korea is known as missiles or us. You want a missile, you have the money, you can buy a missile from North Korea, and they can deliver it, including deliveries to Iran in 2006 and 2007. What else do they sell? Well, nobody would have imagined, and it was pretty shocking to everybody, and including the U.S. intelligence community, which had zero idea about it. They sold to Syria a nuclear reactor exactly like Yongbang. Total design, right, just replicated. So Bashir Assad gave money to Kim Jong-il. North Koreans built at Al-Kibar this reactor, which, were it not for the fact that the Israelis struck it and destroyed it, would be producing plutonium for Syria's bomb today. So to the question, could Kim Jong-il imagine he could sell a bomb? How big would a small nuclear bomb be? About as big as the podium here. Here, this big. How big is that building? About, it's not as big as this hotel, but it's as big as a wing of it. So a guy who could imagine that he could sell a huge reactor, could he imagine he could sell a small nuclear bomb? I think he could. Iran. All of you familiar with your neighbors? Natanz is the enrichment facility where Iran produces its uranium hexafluoride. The P1 centrifuges there in the middle, as I mentioned before, are Pakistani design. That's why they're called P, Pakistan 1. Actually, the next generation 2s and 4s are meant to be installed shortly, but that's been a story for some time. And here is the Qom Covert Enrichment Facility, which was exposed last year, but which had been dug out and prepared for what looked like to be another secret enrichment facility for bomb purposes. My own belief is that this was actually one of several secret sites that Iran had prepared for taking whatever was produced at Natanz for doing their nuclear weapons program. India, Pakistan. If, in fact, Arif and I were talking before, if there's a nuclear war in the next decade, who will be the contestants? And I said, my view, India and Pakistan. Why? You have two states, have fought 3 or 4 wars recently, have a territorial dispute, each have active arsenals, each are expanding their arsenals, and worse than that, from time to time, behind their nuclear shield, the Pakistanis conduct terrorist attacks on the Indians. So this is not a stable situation. You have here, as I say, an Indian arsenal of about 70 weapons, but rapidly expanding. The Pakistani arsenal of about 100 weapons, that's a double in the last 3 years, and is on a rapid expansion trajectory, including soon to bring on a plutonium production facility. So what is Pakistan? Some of you here will be more familiar with it than I am. I study it and try to understand. I would say, in one word, it's a mess. Okay? The Army is the only load-bearing institution in the society. Politics are largely paralyzed and weak. There are 2 running counterinsurgencies, one with the Afghan Taliban and one with the Pakistani Taliban. Al-Qaeda and its leadership operate from ungoverned Pakistan, mostly in North Waziristan. There are assorted militant groups like LET who were sponsored at one stage by the Pakistani intelligence agency, the ISI, and with whom they maintain relations, but who also act independently. And we can all remember the terrible attacks in Mumbai on the Taj Hotel, where a couple 100 people were killed by terrorists from LET who were operating from a base in Pakistan and who in the middle of the operation are talking on their cell phones to their directors in Pakistan. Now, what was the reaction to that? First, the world was appalled, and we should be. How did the Indians react? Extremely moderately. I mean, how could you allow such a thing and not retaliate? I mean, it's hard for me to believe. So a very, very disciplined government. But as the Prime Minister has said many, many times, if and when this happens again, no government could stay in power that didn't react in a harsh way. So we're just waiting for the next equivalent terrorist attack out of Pakistan by a militant group like LET, but there's 4 or 5 other equivalents, having the impact, like Mumbai, which then leads to a major reaction by India, which could then be the trigger of a war between India and Pakistan, which could then become a nuclear war. So extremely dangerous situation. And in case this seems too far away for Americans, in Times Square, the bombing that was to occur in December of 2010 was to be produced by a fellow who's a Pakistani American who went to business school in the US,